The governor explained how the pressure from the unwarranted political crisis served as an enabler to strengthen his commitment to the service that is now impacting lives positively. Rivers State has been embroiled in crisis after a strained relationship between Governor Fubara and his erstwhile political godfather and former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike. And to talk about this, I'm joined by a human rights lawyer, Ekine Henry. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you.
Let me commence by asking what the implications are of Governor Fubara's dismissal of the crisis in Rivers State, considering the reported strained relationship between himself and his godfather, Nyesom Wike, and also defection of 27 members of the House, in Rivers State to the APC.
Oh yes. Since October of 2023, the Rivers State's government and then the people that reside here in Rivers State and those of us who are indigenous to the state have experienced what we'll describe as a mix of the intention to actually advance the welfare of citizens in the state, and then another aspect of it, a deliberate, orchestrated destruction of that intention. And what the effect has been is that the people of Rivers State have actually been worried about their aspirations and then the expectations of good governance, especially after the election and inauguration of Sir Nyesom Fubara, who is the current governor and, of course, the chief executive officer of the state. And then we only have been fortunate here that we haven't got that really broken down to a very disturbing state. Maybe we'll give credit to the leadership style of the governor and, of course, the security agencies, and then even the intervention of civil society organizations and even the people of Rivers State, who are very hospitable and peaceful. Otherwise, we would have had a real degeneration of affairs of business. I think to put credence to that disposition of the people of Rivers State is the statement by His Excellency, the Governor of Rivers State, which recently is to the effect that all these crises, which obviously and clearly so were orchestrated for certain imaginary benefits of a few individuals, that he has put those disturbances and distractions behind him. And I think for me, that is a statement of courage, is a statement of positive disposition, is a statement that demonstrates a progressive leadership. And of course, what all of us in Rivers State would expect. We actually would expect a statement that will come from the leader of the state, like the head of a family. Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, just to quickly chip in there, you talked about good governance not too long ago. What impact can these conflicts between godfathers and also their, governors, between governors, have on the governance and stability in a state like Rivers State?
No, apparently, not just Rivers State. In any space, any governable space, that there is avoidable skirmishes and crises, especially to the level that was attempted to be inflicted in Rivers State, you wouldn't have smooth governance. You will have distraction, especially where the agencies, or if you like, the organs of government, the machinery of government have got themselves immersed in that kind of orchestrated crisis. So it will affect the enhancement of the welfare of citizens, which is the primary purpose of government. Every government is established primarily to continually enhance the welfare of citizens and to provide good governance in a democratic society. So where you have such avoidable distractions, and then if you like, call them political crisis, to me, there is nothing like political crisis. Crisis is crisis. Conflict is conflict. And especially when it affects the life of the majority of citizens, then it is serious. You won't say everybody is not a politician. I am not one. Majority of the population of Rivers State are not politicians. They are ordinary citizens who are going about their businesses. But that crisis you quote, if you like, you say political crisis or political skirmishes, is affecting everybody. So if the government of Siminalayi Fubara, for instance, is determined to progress Rivers State, is determined to develop Rivers State, and is determined to be focused on advancing the welfare of citizens, and then to appropriate the resources of states to this direction, then this distraction will mean that the citizens will suffer in some way, except if the government is deliberately focused and has refused to be distracted. Otherwise, the effect of this kind of crisis is that governance will suffer it.
Okay, let me bring something else to your attention. How would you assess the involvement of President Bola Tinubu as a member of the ruling APC? Recall he mediated between the conflict between Fubara himself and also his predecessor, where Fubara signed a peace accord. How do you perceive this when it comes to impartiality and also separations of powers?
Well, I'd actually said that we at the moment, we have a constitutional democracy, and then our constitution is very clear as to the tiers of government we have. We are a federation, and then Section 1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that defines the Nigerian state gives that clear disposition of a federal system. So we have the tiers of government. And then we have clearly also under chapters 4, 5, and 6 of the respective functions of government. So when this orchestrated, if you like, skirmish was inflicted in Rivers State, yes, we heard about some attempt by Mr. President to intervene, but I had clearly, for me, described that intervention in Abuja as an Abuja imposition. And that was very clear. My view was that most of those issues in the purported 8 clause agreement were constitutional matters that ought to have been addressed just purely constitutionally. We practice a constitutional democracy, so the Constitution defines every person's responsibility and role, including the role of Mr. President. Mr. President, under Section 1 of the Constitution, is bound to continue to enforce, promote, uphold, and defend the provisions of the Constitution, including Section 109 of the Constitution, including the sections that empower the governor alone to constitute his cabinet by appointing commissioners of his choice, and also to appoint or to give responsibilities and duties to those commissioners and others that he has appointed. So when that purported imposition in Abuja took place, and then the president drifted into giving directives in matters that clearly related to constitution, then I saw that as a departure from constitutional democracy, and so a departure from the oath of office and oath of allegiance that the president, the governor, the legislators, and even the ministers, including the minister of the FCT, have sworn to. So I think apparently for me, I don't think I will give credence to that purported agreement. However, the governor of Rivers State returned home and conceded to that agreement and said for peace and for the advancement of the good governance of Rivers State that he was going to comply with that. And I think I made a count of the 8 clause agreement, and about 5 to 6 of them were directed at Mr. Governor, and he has complied with almost all of them. Even when they withdrew their cases in court, the other parties did not withdraw. Like the matter that was in Abuja, that matter got to the end, even when the defendants withdrew their processes. Of course, in that judgment, which I had privilege to read, the judge made reference to the fact that there were no processes still before him for the defendants, since they had withdrawn all their processes. So he entered judgment based on the prayers of the claimants. So that was a demonstration of compliance with the purported directive of Mr. President. And even when he came back, he recognized the commissioner, the members of the purported Rivers State House of Assembly. As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Martin Ameule and his 26 friends were colleagues and probably former members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. But those matters are sub judice, so I won't go beyond that point. And then you find a situation where the governor yet conceded to that by nominating even commissioners that had willingly withdrawn resigned from their offices. And he submitted those nominations to them again. Even when they confirmed them, he swore them into office and assigned responsibilities to them. And of course, it also receives correspondence from them with the purported amendments that we hear every day, every morning, afternoon, and evening. That Martin Ameule and his friends will purport to amend provisions of extant laws, and then the governor receives correspondence of those bills, and of course he makes his presentation where he withholds his asset. He will give reasons for withholding his asset. And right now he has made a position, a declaration towards peace and progress in Rivers State. Yes, thank you very much.
I'm afraid that's the most we can take, but thank you so much for sharing your insights on the news. Ekine Henry, human rights lawyer, thank you once again.
Much for having me. Please let there be peace in Rivers State.